It's sunny and good.
Okay, let's see here.
Buddy's like made a joke like. I knew that. Oh, and I was like. You're back here studious in the back. You know, if I'm in the back.
Hi, Danny.
How are you?
I'm well, thank
I didn't know you was in the hospital.
Yeah, I just heard, I mean, they just were telling me, yeah, quadruple bypass, I guess.
Yeah.
They're doing it on Friday, I guess he's got some kind of something they don't like, so they were gonna do it today, but they got something they don't like. I don't know what it is.
He's taking care of his dog. Mama, she done.
Yeah, it's all about the street.
Yeah, I'll go over there. Change the shoes. But I haven't got a key to the safety box now that I think about it. Might have
Yeah,
to-
that is,
I might have to fumble the clubhouse.
you can sit over here.
I might, but I'm kind of liking on the side.
Well, okay,
I
whatever,
don't know why.
whatever.
I just remembered I had a key to Willie's safe fun box. Yeah, we may have to. We may have to.
Let the body get cold.
I know, and I'm thinking about it. I'm texting that. Don't do it right here. You see the tank from Gary? How are you?
Texas, yeah, I talked to her.
Oh, you did? What did he call you?
Yeah.
Doing all right?
Yeah, yeah, overall.
It's funny, Rich is online and slacking tonight.
Richard's online tonight.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Johnny, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Danny. How you doing?
All righty. Larry's there. What's up, Larry?
Hey, Danny. Good to see you, buddy.
All right.
Hey, Danny.
Yes, sir.
Hey, how's Kyle doing? Is he in Oklahoma?
No, he's coming in. He's building a house. He'll be here in a couple of months.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny.
Wife for sale.
I know.
Housebroken.
Oh,
Not tame, but housebroken.
yeah, the difference.
All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to week 23. We're winding it down. Before we start, our friend Willie's in the hospital. Keep him in your prayers.
Yes.
Yeah, and huh? Willie, he's having heart surgery.
Willie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. All right, so we talked, we went over the 8 steps. And so now we're talking about the 9th step. So I know I already mentioned it, but oh, you want to let Tom in? So the 9th step, this is where we go out and actually make the amends. We don't, there's no hesitation here. Wherever the opportunity is, we do it. Not whenever, wherever the opportunity is, we do it. We don't have to get ready because that's what the 8th step was all about. Okay, so the 8th step was about becoming willing, and the 9th step is just to do it. Okay, and it helps a lot. What we talked about is to kind of rehearse or know what you're making amends for. All right. Well, I want to talk to you now for a minute or two. Is we've learned a lot of things here. We've learned about the 4 absolutes. We've learned about the the 3 basic instincts of life. Okay. So today I'm going to talk to you about the 3 dimensions of existence. Okay. Everything exists on these 3 dimensions. They're not in any particular order. But the first dimension is the dimension of the spirit. Okay. And what that means is that we've learned from the book that God dwells in all of us. So we're going to have to live with God, whether we like it or not. The only question then is, are we going to live with God in harmony or disharmony? That's the question. And I don't know any class of people more separated from God than us alcoholics. Okay. So that's the first dimension of existence. The second dimension of existence is the mental dimension. And we all have a mind. Sometimes we act like we don't, but we all have a mind. So the question is, how are we going to live with our mind? In harmony or disharmony? And I don't know any class of people more fouled up in the head than us alcoholics. The third dimension of existence is the physical dimension. Now, we normally think that that means the body. But what it really means is the world and everything in it. We don't have any other place to live yet. Maybe someday there'll be another planet we can go to. But as of now, we have this universe here, this planet here to live on. And that's the only place we have to live. So the question is, how are we going to live on this earth with the world and everything in it in harmony or in disharmony? That's the question. The third dimension is the physical dimension. And I don't know any class of people that's ever been more screwed up in relationships than us alcoholics, right? With the world and the people in it. So the steps are a design for living that puts us back together in all 3 dimensions as God intended it to be in the first place. That's what's happening here. That's what we're going to do. So we're we have this dimension of the spirit, dimension of the mind, and the dimension of the physical dimension. Okay,
Can you repeat that one more time? The steps are for,
the steps are designed to put us back together in all three dimensions, the way God intended us to be in the first place. Now, the book talks about a couple of times it references the fourth dimension of existence. And I think we discussed that already in here weeks and weeks ago. But just in a nutshell, there's really no such thing as the fourth dimension of existence. What the fourth dimension is Bill's using that example as being spiritually, physically, and mentally, and then some in the right place, you know, and that's a result of the steps. Okay. So let's see here. Let's go to the ninth step says, make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So three kind of parts to this step. So the first one is direct amends, and I think we talked about this last week. There's two types of direct amends: eyeball to eyeball and equal restitution. Those are the two types of direct amends: eyeball to eyeball and direct and equal restitution. So when it says made direct amends, that's what we're talking about. And then wherever possible, wherever possible, not whenever possible, because whenever possible may not come. But wherever possible, wherever the chance is, if we do our step work and we've done a good 8th step, and if there's something that we're supposed to do, God is already with us by this point in recovery. We have God with us. God's going to make it possible on His time, not on our time. I don't know if I shared this with you, but my first wife and I grew up together in the same neighborhood. So our families entwined, you know, since we're little kids. And we were together like 20 years, I think, something like that. I think, I really don't, I honestly don't remember. I want to say I was about 25 years sober before she let me make amends to her.
Want to make sure it stops.
Now, that's not to say that I wasn't ready, and that's not to say that I didn't try. Because I was ready immediately. By the time I got to this step, I wanted to make amends to her badly. And though we talked all the time on the phone about our kids, she wouldn't give me 5 minutes alone with her. So my kids always tell me, it's because she hates you, Dad. And I say, no, it's because she loves me too much. But so I've asked her, and she kept saying, no, there's no need to tell me anything. It's just, we're okay. And that's what she would do. So after a few years of really trying to make amends to her, my sponsor said, write her a letter. Now, we don't write letters to make amends to people, unless this is the only possible way. Okay? But we really try to make, because a letter is not direct amends. The rule is this: can you write a letter to make amends? Absolutely, if you harmed the person through the mail. If you harm them through the mail, you can make amends through the mail. If not, that's not it. So, but after a few years of really trying to get 3 or 4 years of really trying to make amends, he said, go ahead and write her a letter. So I sat down and I wrote a letter. Those of you know me, I love to write. I've got novels and books that I write. So I just wrote this letter, and I gave it to my daughter Angela, and I said, give this to your mother. She said, okay. And she went to give it to Mary, my ex-wife, and Mary looked at it and she says, is that from your father? And Angela said, yeah. She said, oh no. He's a damn good writer. I ain't reading that. And she wouldn't accept the letter. So years keep going by, and every once in a while, 2 times in probably 15 years or maybe more, I saw her 2 times. Talked to her 1,000,000 times. I actually physically saw her twice, and then both times were at my 2 daughters' weddings. And I didn't want to corner her and do that there. It wasn't right. It wasn't appropriate. So, years go by. I'm telling you, it must have been, I'm going to be 30 years sober in a few months. So it's probably 25 or 26 years. And I never stopped asking her, and since then, since that 15-year period, we've seen each other many times, and we talk often, and we're friends, but I just never stopped asking her. And one day I said, we were going to be at a family picnic kind of thing in Florida, and I says, "You think tomorrow?" I called her up. "You think tomorrow?" She's remarried. I'm remarried. Her husband and I get along great. I says, "You think tomorrow you could give me 10 minutes?" And she said, "Yeah." And I hung up with her. I went, "Holy shit. I forgot what I got to tell her." I've been asking her for so many years to make amends. And after 25 or 26 years, she said, "Yeah, I didn't remember what I had to make amends for. I had to sit down and think about it. It wasn't that it all came back to me, but anyway, I made amends to her. And that was on God's time when she was ready for it, not me when I was ready for it. So my point is, yes.
Did she accept it?
Oh yeah, she knew it. She already knew what I was, what I was going to say. I got to the point. I said, "Did I leave anything out?" And she says, "You've left so many things out." I said, "You want to tell me about them?" She said, "There's no need. I love you and I forgive you."
There you go.
And okay.
So she accepted.
Oh yeah, she accepted it. Yeah.
That's
I looking back on it, I think that she wouldn't let me make amends until she was ready to accept it.
Yeah.
And it took all those years, But here's the point, right? Doesn't matter if I never made amends to her. I was ready. I was willing. Honestly, 100% willing to make amends to her. Didn't matter if I ever actually got to or not. I'm glad I did. It was better that I did. And and I don't know, but my point is that when you travel this path with God, God's going to allow you to do what you have to do. He's going to make the way for you. You just got to follow it. All right.
So Danny, is there a point where we don't accept their response? And the 2 things I can think of is if I robbed you, broke into your house, got your safe, took 10 grand from you, whether you're a family member or not, and I go to you, you both know that I did it. And you say, "Just keep doing what you're doing." And like you said, we walk away. Yes. Is there a point where we look at it and say, "Well, no, it can't work that way. I need it." And I know you said we can make it anonymous, all that, but still, it's not. So do we hold their feet to the fire and say, "I really need to do this"?
No.
And is there another part? The other thing is when they don't tell us, like your wife, which that's different, but it's pressure. It's a year or 2 and you make an amends and they don't give us feedback.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and the answer to both of those questions is no, because we're not trying to produce an outcome.
But we're also trying to grow from it though, right?
Yeah, but you see, the growth is becoming willing.
Yeah.
And then actually looking that person in the eye and doing and saying what you have to say. That's the growth. Anything beyond that is you trying to control the situation and control an outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's not what this is about. So you don't hold anybody's feet to the fire. You're there to clean up your side of the street. How they take that is none of your business.
Because they might not forgive you.
Some people won't forgive you. No, absolutely not. Some people won't forgive you. The book touches on that. There's about 8 pages in the book on this step. And the book masterfully covers every kind of situation. It really does. What are those pages? Well, they would be from page 76 right through 84, midway through 84.
Can you tell me, and if I'm ahead of you, if you're not that far, you know, so tell me, I'll wait. Can you tell me some plausible causes of why we would make an amends, or where it's to what we call real amends to people, institutions. So what is a scenario where I would owe an amends to an institution?
Oh, there's a million of them. First of all, it depends on the institution. It depends what you're talking about. But let's just say, let's just use women. Okay, because women and men are institutions of themselves. So let's just say women. Let's say you were just horrible. You treated women horribly your whole life. It's different between you harmed one person or 2 person or 3 women. That's one. But if every woman that you've ever come across, you've never given a fair square deal, right? Yeah. So in that case, it would be the institution of women. So how do you make that right? You start treating them right. You clean up what you can clean up, but then you change your behavior. This is probably a good point, though. This is probably one of the most important things in making amends. Never make amends until you know that you are done with that behavior. I give you a really silly analogy of what I'm talking about. I take a rock and I throw it through your window. And then I go knock on your door. Gee, I'm sorry I broke your window here. Here's $50, get your window fixed. And tomorrow I walk by your house and throw a rock through your window. Right? Then that says that the amends I made was not real. And nothing's really changed in you. You have no spiritual growth. Okay? So before we make amends, be sure that you are ready to stop that behavior, whether it be with that person or with anybody else. You can because a lot of us will stop that behavior with one person and then put it on somebody else sober. Find a new victim, so to speak, right? Somebody I can abuse now that I'm sober differently, but it's the same concept. So you have to stop the behavior. The behavior must stop before I make the amends. I have to be sure that I am done with this and I want to do something better with my life. And that's what this is about. This amends process is to right a wrong. I haven't righted a wrong if I'm continuing the behavior. Does that make sense? So, and then in other institutions, let's say you've cheated on your taxes all your life, right? Not that any of us would ever do that, but that's an the tax man is an institution. Okay, let's say you have a credit union or something, or a bank you cheated.
I have a perfect example. A
Okay,
friend of mine used to run the March of Dimes program in our office.
okay,
Well, he collected all the money. It didn't all make it to the March of Dimes, but some of it was in his pocket for drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And he's now dead. He didn't get a chance to make amends, but that would be an institution where you'd go and
Absolutely.
say, I cheated you out of,
yeah.
I don't know how much, but
An institution could be just a one store.
Yeah.
If you grew up in a town and there's the store that sold the hardware, and that's an institution. That place, it's a business. So a business would be an institution. So the important thing to know is that if you're supposed to do something, God's going to make it possible. That's what I was trying to say. If you're supposed to do something, God's going to make it possible. So by this point, we have completed the process of recovery. Remember, I said to you, the process of recovery is the first 7 steps, right? So now we want to start looking at guilt and shame and start removing this kind of stuff from our life. And this takes place in the 9th step when I start facing all these things and all these people that I've done. If I'm sober, I want to stay in the truth. I don't want to live a lie, and I don't want to be a lie. Okay? Because the truth is about the present. A lie is about the past. And I don't want to be in the past. I want to be here. I want to be present. I want to be in the here and now. And I want to be present. I want to be accountable. When you get sober and you really do this stuff, you become a man. You become a woman. Though I was physically a man when I got here, I was mentally not a man. And that's why back in step 6, it talks about this step that separates the men from the boys, right? Because we don't want to grow up. We don't want to be responsible. We don't want to do the right thing. But this is life-changing stuff that we're doing now. We're going, this is the first time we're going outside of ourselves. All these steps prior to this was about here, me, inside, looking at me, changing me. This now is about going outside of me and fixing up some shit that I messed up along the way. And that has to be part of your recovery process. Otherwise, you're not really recovering, right? I don't want to write on the board. I always say, it's in my book too. I always say that steps 1, 2, 3 teach me how to give up. 4, 5, 6 teach me how to own up. 7, 8, 9 teach me how to make up. And 10, 11, 12 teach me how to grow up. Right?
Okay, you're gonna do this again.
Give up, own up, make up, and grow up.
Give up.
Make up and grow up. The first 3 steps get me right with God. 4, 5, 6 gets me right with myself. 7, 8, 9 gets me right with others. And 10, 11, 12 helps me stay right with God, myself, and others. Does that make sense? Anybody got any questions so far?
Oh, that's make that.
Give up, own up, make up, grow up, and throw up in the process.
Yeah,
No doubt.
that's step 13.
And remember, we're not making amends to make everything all right. Remember that, it's important. That's not the goal.
It seems kind of selfish.
Huh?
It seems kind of selfish that
What?
tonight stuff,
Why does it seem selfish?
if it's not to make things right. Like,
No, it would be selfish if the purpose was to make things right. Make things all right, not right, all right. Make things okay.
I want to piggyback on what she says, because I feel like I'm holding on to this thing, like I feel like I need to pay my pound of flesh. I feel like I need some pain to grow. If pain is the cornerstone of growth, I mean, I understand, I love your analogy. It's the willingness part. That is the big thing with us.
Yeah.
When we are willing. And I'm not trying to control the outcome, but I also want to pay my penance.
Well, you can do that. Nobody's stopping you. You
Well,
know,
that's what I'm,
it's-
when I'm trying to. I'm
if
not
you
trying
watch,
to-
I don't want to get political, of course, but if you watch all these years, these people talking about, the people with money need to pay more taxes. No, nobody has ever stopped these people that are saying that from paying more taxes themselves. Because any year you can pay more taxes. If you feel people that make money should pay more taxes and you're one of the people with more money, but you're not paying more taxes, you shouldn't be talking that shit. So nobody's stopping you from paying your dues. The amends process is a certain thing. Now, if you still feel at the end of the amends process that you haven't really righted this wrong and you need to do some type of penance, then do it.
What I'm feeling like is I don't want somebody that I greatly harm to let me off the hook. I feel like they'll say, just stay sober.
Yeah, but that's, you're again back to the controlling the outcome.
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
But I'm just
Wait.
struggling with the penance part of it.
Well, the penance part is totally fine for you to make, regardless of what they say. So if you rob Doug of $10,000 and you make amends to him and you want to start paying him off and he says, listen, just keep doing what you're doing. We're square. There's nothing stopping you from putting money in this guy's hand some way, through his wife, through his kids, through his family, drop it off anonymously at the door, put it in the mailbox, ring the doorbell, run away. There's lots of ways to give him money. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. But the amends process, when you look him in the eye, eyeball to eyeball, and you've made direct amends to him, and they don't want your pendants, using your words, doesn't mean you don't have to do that pendant. Just means that with you and that person, the amends is done.
I think something just clicked when you were talking. It also I have to be comfortable with that outcome, the same way I have to be comfortable with the outcome of somebody calling me a POS and get out of here.
Yeah.
And not accepting my amends,
That's right.
because I played my part. I'm
Yeah.
doing so.
Yeah.
When I look at it that way, that helps me.
I can do POS and get the hell out of here a lot better than I can do. It's okay, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm a piece of shit and I deserve you're a piece of shit, get the hell out of here. Because I get that what you're saying, because it's like, this is all they want, I should really be taking it back and have my ass whooped, but.
So look at this for a minute. I was, let me see. I don't remember how old I was when I got sober. I'm 63.
Count back.
I'm going to be 30 years sober. So I was 32 when I got sober. Okay. I had never in my life, those 32 years, had a job. Since I was 12 years old, I've been on the streets, running and gunning and living a life of crime. And I lived pretty good. I had lots of things. My family was taken care of. So I did well. But I never had a job. So now I come in here and to sit back and think about 30 years of robbing and stealing and plotting and planning, I can't even begin to think of all the victims that I had. So what do? I try to live differently. I try to make some anonymous amends and take care of this and take care of that and do this, and I did that for a good 10 years, financially. Amends, anonymous, all around the damn place, doing things. I could live to be 200. I could never pay back what I stole from society. So what's it about? It's about just trying to live different and straightening up your past as best you can. What I hear you talking about is trying to be perfect in doing this thing. There's no perfect in this. You can't undo the harm because you're making amends to somebody. That's not going to be the case. You punch a guy in the face. By apologizing doesn't undo the harm you caused him punching him in the face.
No, it's still broke.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yes.
How'd you make amends to the guy in the restaurant?
He wouldn't let me make amends. I paid for his lawyer. I've sent money to his family. I when I went to Italy, because they deported him, when I went to Italy, I tried to see him, he wouldn't see me. You know, but I financially took care of them, for quite a while. And they never sent my money back. But I've never been able to look them in the eyes and make amends to them, but I've always been willing to.
That's the key, isn't it, Danny?
That's the key. That's the key. Yeah, just so you understand what she's talking about. She's talking about a gentleman that came from Italy and brought his family to America. My neighborhood, that's where everybody moved to from Italy, Little Italy. And I took him and his family and moved him to Florida and bought a restaurant, put in his name. And then the place got raided and I had a kilo of cocaine up in the ceiling that they busted him for. And he had said to me when I offered him this opportunity, when she said, all I want is for my kids to grow up in America. And I said to him, if you stay with me, not only will they grow up in America, they'll be rich. I had a part to play in those days. And what happened was they raided the place. The restaurant was in his name. They charged him with the cocaine. He wasn't a citizen, had a green card. They brought me into the FBI brought me down to Miami and had me in the room, and they said, we found a kilo of cocaine in your restaurant. And I said, I don't own a restaurant. And they said, we know that's your restaurant. I said, I don't care what you think you know. If you found something in a restaurant, it ain't mine. I don't own a restaurant. And they had to let me go, but they didn't let him go. And they wound up deporting him and his family. And that's the tornado we are in people's lives. We ruin a lot of lives. And yeah, so but I've always been willing to make amends to him, but I never had the opportunity to. So I did the next thing I could. I financially gave them money, sent a lot of money.
Is that living amends or what is?
No, it's it's
What's
just
a living amends mean? I changed my life.
well, yeah, living amends is I don't do that shit no more. That put people in jeopardy like that. That's a living amends. I think if you look at what is that, what do you want to call it? Call it what it is. It was a guilt payment. It was to ease my conscience, and I wasn't sober. Well, I gave them money when I was sober, but I started giving them money when I wasn't sober. So that's I was like, nobody was better at Christmas time than me. I would shower my kids and with tons of gifts. You could probably relate to this kind of stuff, right? Why? Because I loved them and I wanted to show them how much I loved them. Bullshit. When I got sober, I realized what that was about. That was guilt here. This is for all the times I wasn't here for you. This is for I didn't know that then, but that's really what that was all about. My wife would say, stop with all this stuff you're getting them. And I say, no. Oh. So, yeah, call it what it was. That was guilt payments, try to make me feel better because of giving them money.
Did you ever know you got sober?
I don't know. Probably not.
You made some amends.
Probably not, but I don't lose any sleep over that, I don't, ever since then, I've never done that to anybody else. So that's what amends is about. That's a living amends. I don't put people in jeopardy like that anymore. So, okay. Let's talk about, let's go to the book for a minute. I haven't gone to the book yet. I think we left off on page 78. Let's go to second paragraph. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. Telling them what we are trying to do, we make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory that it may cause financial harm. Approaching this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay, We must lose our fear of creditors no matter how far we have to go. For we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. So, okay, so what he's saying here is that kind of the rule of thumb is here when you're making financial amends, we kind of have the attitude that, oh God, these people want all my money. No, they don't. They don't want all your money. They just want their money back. They don't want all your money. They want their money. And so when you go to make a financial amends, you need to have some money. And you need to make a plan of how you're going to pay this money down. And you need to stick to that plan. That's the important part there. Otherwise, you haven't changed and there's nothing different. And you're not amending anything. So you go, I owe you $5,000. Here's 200. I'm going to give you 200 a month until I'm paid you off. And you make the deal that you can make, that you know that you can keep. You pay what you can. And this is where you talked earlier about hurting, feeling it, right? Financial amends is where you need to feel it. It's not okay to have 6 people on your list that you owe money to, creditors and friends and family, and you're going out and buying a new car. You're going and taking a vacation to Mexico or whatever, right? That's not okay. Pay these people first. And then take care of whatever you want to take care of. So deny yourself before you splurge on yourself while you owe them money. I'm going to tell you a quick story. There was a guy, this is a family friend. Okay. Don't forget, I'm born and raised in Little Italy. So there was a guy, he was a big time mob guy. Big time mob guy. He was like the 3rd highest in the family. And towards the end of his life, when he got old, I used to take him and pick him up and take him around all the time because he couldn't get around too much on his own. So I used to take him all over. And I know the guy my whole life. Now, his wife and my mother-in-law were best friends. And they were 2 of the craziest women you ever met in your life. They were both gambling addicts. They were both crazy. My mother-in-law was a shoplifter and a gambler, and Nina, Frank's wife, was crazy, right? So we used to go shoot craps. So I used to pick them up like twice a week and take them down to the neighborhood where they had a crap game. And we would shoot craps. He'd be standing next to me, and I'd go in my pocket and I'd pull out a wad of money and I'd throw it on the table. And he'd pull out money and throw it on the table. This went on for about 5 or 6 times. And finally, now this guy was a big time guy, but again, we were friends my whole life. Finally, he looked at me and he said, when the hell are you going to do the right thing? And I went, what are you talking about, Frank? As soon as I said that to him, he turned white. He knew that he'd been taken. But my point to you is, the point I'm trying to bring up is, he thought, my mother-in-law and his wife went to him one day and said, Danny just got arrested. We need $5,000 bail right away. So he went right in his pocket, $5,000, gave it to them, and they went supposedly to bail me out. And they went and gambled with it. I knew nothing about it, right? But can you imagine this man that we're out gambling 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm pulling out wads of money, and I'm not never once saying, here, take 500. Here, take 1,000, right? And he couldn't take it anymore. And he finally said to me, when the hell are you going to do the right thing? And I went, what are you talking about? When I said, what are you talking about? He knew he was taken. His wife took him. This guy he probably killed 20 guys in his life. In fact, this guy was a one bad dude, He was a sweetheart of a guy, but reputation. And his wife took him for $5,000. His wife and my mother-in-law, and they used me as the story. But can you imagine how he was feeling?
Yeah.
So I give you that example to tell you, how do you think it feels if you owe somebody $500 and here you are, you come in and you got new suit or you just bought a new television, tell everybody about your new town, you owe them $500. You know, that's not living sober very good. Oh, you know, those are the kind of things that we gotta deny ourselves for. So, and you gotta feel it, you know, pay off the $500, then go buy a TV.
I've always had a problem about making amends to people that I wasn't because I was an alcoholic. You understand what I mean?
No,
I mean, you can be an asshole even if you're not an alcoholic.
oh, yeah,
So if you harm someone, not because of your alcoholism, is that the same kind of amends?
well, yeah, we don't want to use our alcoholism as an excuse when we make amends. What he was talking about here was that, you know, the creditor, you go to the creditor, you go, look, I was drinking too much, I blew the money, and I want to make it right. But we don't use that, you know, we don't use that excuse as, you got a bucket there? Are you getting a thing to pass around? Oh, they have new buckets. New buckets. All right. They got deep buckets now, so they want you to fill it up.
Fill it up, yeah.
Fill that bucket, make amends, put it in that basket there. Okay, so we don't want to, we're not making amends. What were we talking about?
Second amendment, non-alcoholic stuff.
Oh, yeah, we don't want to use, I don't want to go to my friend or my family or somebody that I'm a person, I want to say, listen, I did all these things to you because I was an alcoholic. Because what we're doing then is we're denying the truth. And the truth is, I did these things because I'm me. Not because I'm alcoholic.
Yes, honey. Thank you.
So, shake them down good. So, you understand? So, regardless of what's it got to do with your drinking or not, we have to clean up
Thank you.
our past, all of it.
All of it.
Mike?
On the 8, 9, I think that was like fifth step or the fourth step on the original sixth step. And it was, we made amends to all persons we had harmed through our drinking. So Bill went ahead and founded on that to keep us from worming out of making amends.
Yeah, it's real simple. We just have a list of everybody we've harmed, whether it was drunk or drugged out or sober. And we need to clean that list up. That's just the easiest way to look at it. It's irrelevant if I was under the influence of something or not. But usually, no matter what, I'm under the influence of me,
Yeah,
right? That's my biggest influence. That's my biggest drug is me.
yeah.
So whatever I'm under the influence of, it doesn't matter. Not relevant. One of the things that we talk about on that we read in this paragraph, you hear people in meetings all the time say, we don't say we're sorry when we're making amends. Everybody knows how sorry you are. It's a good AA talk, but it's not correct.
So we're here now.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with looking somebody in the eye that you care about and means something to you and telling them sincerely, I'm really sorry about what I did to you. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, the other part to that is, I know I ain't gonna do that no more. But until I know I ain't gonna do that no more, I don't go to you and tell you how sorry I was that I did that.
In the big book, does it mention that about not saying I'm sorry? Or
No, that's AA rhetoric.
Good.
you hear that all the time. People say, we don't say we're sorry. Everybody knows how sorry you are, But here, we just read it here. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry.
Where's that? Where is it?
That's on 78.
Page 78, that second paragraph towards the end of it.
Isn't that rhetoric though? Because so many times we say we're sorry and we do it right again.
Well, yeah. I mean,
It's hollow words.
it's not baseless.
Right.
That saying is not unfounded. It's founded in how we always were. We've said we're sorry a million times and repeated the behavior again and again and again. But now we're on different footing. Now we're on, we're able to look you in the eye and sincerely apologize for what we did. I just don't, looking at my daughter or my brother or somebody, looking at them and go, I apologize. That's just not my lingo. I don't talk like that. But looking them in the eye and going, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I did.
Some sounds wrong too, and I like that too. I like I'm wrong. I like I'm sorry, and I like I'm wrong. It's fucking wrong. But I mean, like, I don't want to say I'm sorry too, but I'm just, oh,
Maybe you're related to the Fonz. He couldn't say sorry.
I'm so related to the
All right. So that's another important thing, right? We don't want to, we don't want to not say we're sorry when we're really sorry. What's wrong with that? I don't understand why people would say that, but you hear it all the time. You hear it all the time. It just doesn't make sense to me. Okay, back to page 78. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense which might land us in jail if it were known to the authorities. We may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We have already admitted this in confidence to another person, but we are sure we would be imprisoned or lose our job if it were known. Maybe it's only a petty offense such as padding the expense account. Most of us have done that sort of thing. Maybe we're divorced and have remarried but haven't kept up the alimony until number one. She's indignant about it and it's a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble too. Although these reparations take numerous forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience, we ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. Now, does that mean you go to jail? I've shared with you before, I didn't get sober to spend the rest of my life in prison. Well, if you know my story, when I was 2 years sober, I was indicted by the federal government in New York and I had to go surrender myself for records of my past. And I was able to make a deal to plead guilty to all my past crimes, just without even whatever it was. And just a blanket of mine was under the RICO Act, so it included all kinds of stuff. The RICO Act covers everything, and so they can't come back and prosecute me now for something I did then. So, I'm done with all that, and I've been able to be free since then. I haven't committed a crime in 30 years. Well, 29 years and some change. But the question always is, okay, I mean, for me, it was, how willing am I at this point? Am I willing to do 5 years? Am I willing to do 10 years? Am I willing to do life? No, I'm not willing to do life. Am I willing to do 5 years? Yeah. So at a couple of years sober, I had this serious conversation of what am I willing to do? How much time am I willing to do? And, it came to the point where there would be no 5 or 10 years. It would be life without parole. And so I kept my mouth shut. And I live differently today. And that's just the way it is. And I'm fine with that. So the book says, what I just read here was, let me just see. I can't find it again. Anyway, it just said, I just read it in here that we make the best deal that we can.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be able, here's the thing, you have to be able to look yourself in the eye, in the mirror. And you have to be able to say, you know what? Changing my life. If I continue to live the way I lived before I got sober, and I lived that way my first year sober. And I said to I remember saying to my sponsor one day, I'm not feeling so spiritual. And he goes, I wonder why, Danny. Yeah. I literally at 8 months sober was ordered to go on a hit team with some people, leaving meetings and going to do that kind of stuff. So I was leaving a meeting, I'd go to these clubs and I'd collect money, and I had slot machines and all these clubs all throughout New York, and that's making people pay up and all that kind of stuff. That's how I lived. And a year sober, I'm talking about, I'm not feeling spiritual. I didn't drink, didn't have a drink, I didn't do any drugs in a year, but I wasn't feeling anything. And my sponsor, who knew me, we were in prison together many years earlier. He said to me, I wonder why. You know, and so it comes a point where you have to decide, you know, what are you going to do with your life? What do you want? You got to change your life. And this is the decision that we make. And it's the same thing for somebody that just getting sober and they didn't even commit crimes. They still have to make that decision to change their life and follow it through with some action. So, okay. Back to the book, 79. Usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be too hasty and foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. And it talks about the guy that wound up sending a note to his wife and that he owed her money. She didn't have him arrested. He told her he was willing to go to jail. Okay, go to page 80. This brings to mind a story about one of our friends. While drinking, he accepted a sum of money from a bitterly hated business rival, giving him no receipt for it. He subsequently denied having received the money and used the instance as a basis for discrediting the man. That's pretty shitty, right? He thus used his own wrongdoing as a means of destroying the reputation of another. In fact, his rival was ruined. He felt that if he had done a wrong, he could not possibly make right. If he opened that old affair, he was afraid it would destroy the reputation of his partner, disgrace his family, and take away his means of livelihood. What right had he to involve those dependent upon him? How could he possibly make a public statement exonerating his rival? After consulting with his wife and partner, he came to the conclusion that it was better to take those risks than to stand before his creator guilty of such ruinous slander. He saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands, or he would soon start drinking again, and all would be lost anyhow. He attended church for the first time in many years. After the sermon, he quietly got up and made an explanation. His action was widespread approval. His action met with widespread approval, and today he's one of the most trusted citizens of his town. This all happened years ago. So that's a pretty humbling thing, isn't it? Not only are you making amends to that person, you're humbling yourself in front of all of these people and letting them know just how low you had gone. That's pretty bad. The chances are that we have domestic troubles. Perhaps we're mixed up with a woman in a fashion we wouldn't care to be advertised. We doubt if, in this respect, alcoholics are fundamentally much worse than other people. But drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. After a few years with an alcoholic, the wife gets worn out, resentful, and uncommunicative. How could she be anything else? The husband begins to feel lonely, sorry for himself. He commences to look around in nightclubs or the equivalent for something besides liquor. Perhaps he is having a secret and exciting affair with the girl who understands. Ah, the girl who understands. In fairness, we must say that she may understand. But what are we going to do about a thing like that? A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times, especially if he is married to a loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for him. So what he's saying here is whatever the situation is, we got to do something about it. If we're sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, should we tell her in detail? Undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. She may insist on knowing all the particulars. She will want to know who the woman is and where she is. We feel we ought to say to her that we have no right to involve another person. We are sorry for what we have done, and God willing, it should not be repeated. More than that, we cannot do. We have no right to go further, though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, we often found this the best course to take. Now, that doesn't work too well. My experience in working with other people, that doesn't work too well. They always want to know who the other person was, even if it's a guy and the woman is making the amends. It doesn't matter. Inquiring minds want to know. They want to know who that person is. So it often makes things worse than so. This every case is different. You have to spend time with your sponsor. You got to really talk about this because it's very possible that you are going to cause further harm. And let me say this: the step says to them and others, right? Right? That's what the step says. You are not a them, and you are not a other. We're not talking about saving your ass. Made a direct amends wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. You are not a them, and you are not another. So, but it's very real that telling your wife or telling your husband that you cheated on them and then not telling them who it was, it's going to cause much more harm. Granted, most of that harm is going to be on you, and you're not a them or another, but it may also cause harm to them. So you really need to, there's no pat answer here. You know, I've worked with people and I've told people, tell them, and just don't tell them about the other person, to take the consequences. And I've told other people just the opposite of that. So you got to take everything into consideration and see where you're at and see if there's a way to do it without causing harm to other people. You definitely don't want to cause harm to the other person that you were with. You have no right to do that. Our literature talks about you, no right to, help yourself at somebody else's expense. Now, next week we're going to go over what I promised you we're going to go over, and I'm going to teach you a great tool for recovery. We've got a couple minutes left. Does anybody got any questions? Anybody online got a question? You got one, Doug?
You said there were 3 parts to step 9. You said recommends was 1.
Yeah, wherever possible. And not harming them or others. Mike?
Back on, page 70. The proper way to, again, that's still is to avoid empirical thinking for a drive. Suppose we call short chosen ideal and stumble, does this mean we're going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this only happens. It depends on us and on our motive. If we're sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire that God take us better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry, our conduct continues on others, we're quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience.
Yeah. And I think we talked about that when we did the sexual inventory in the fourth step. That we gotta answer all those questions and go over all that, otherwise we're just gonna keep repeating the behavior. Okay, time's up. Next week, same time, same channel. So long, guys. Thank you.
Good night, Danny. Thank you very much.
All right.
See you, Danny.
So long, guys.
Thanks, Danny.
All
Good night,
right.
Dorothy. Good night, Dorothy.
Bye, Tom.
Good night, Johnny.
Yeah, bye, Tom.
Don't say bye, just say good night.
Good night, Tom.
Good night,
John.
Tom.
Good night, Dorothy.
Good night, Danny.
Good night, Miss Calabash, wherever you are.
Hello, Larry.